Good afternoon, everyone. Let me put this video into context. After I was pointing out that these false and misleading headlines across the media saying that because the Arctic had gone a few degrees warmer than normal, they were calling it a heat wave, and they were neglecting the super freeze over in Europe. And I was even pointing out the way that they'd written the headlines, if you were skim reading, that you would have thought this was 45 degrees Fahrenheit in the Arctic. The Hominem attacks commenced. They were coordinated across several YouTube channels, Twitter, Facebook, and you know what? I'm not even going to mention who they are. And if any of you listening know who they are, do not pass it through your social media who they are. We do not want to give them any extra eyes on their site. I'm responding to this video that they did in order for you, the viewer, to be more informed how manipulation on the global warming side is taking place. And those of us who are questioning it, manipulation of temperatures and the way things are portrayed on the global warming side of it, I want you to learn. So this is why I'm doing the video. Headline here, parts of the Arctic spike to 45 degrees above normal. If you're skim reading, your eyes stop at 45 degrees. And then in the next paragraph down, parts of the Arctic were more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, you're skim reading, oh, warmer than normal. And then you put that together, 50 degrees, and I was pointing this out the way it's cleverly written. And then these other articles, North Pole just had an extreme heat wave for the third winter in a row. You know, it's funny, they're showing Nullschool here, that's well below zero. And even the reference they were using, the Homenim Attack video, uses this very chart from the DMI for Arctic temperatures, north of 80 degrees north, but that blue line is freezing. All these anomalous events of heat took place where the red line were far below freezing. And they like to use climate Reanalyzer, which runs the hottest on the web as the temperature measurements. You would never know that temperatures are below freezing by looking at the above climate Reanalyzer charts. Even here, when we look at it, that green in the center of the North Pole looks like it's at least 10°C, but when you come down and you take a look again, Nullschool or Windy Map, it was below zero. And this is what I was pointing out in the video, that from the 21st to the 25th, it was not 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Although I'll point out I did make one little mistake here. I thought it was below freezing for the entire event, but it did for a 6-hour period clip above to 1 degree Celsius and then drop right back on down to minus 28. I had trouble even finding that blip. I had to go through every single time series of those days to find the one period that it went to 1 degree Celsius. Well, let's come back to today. Look at how cold the temperatures in the Arctic are again, and the media won't touch this one. They left you back there where they said it was a heat wave. And again, I get a lot of flack for trying to point out 1920s, 1930s. Atlantic inflows doing the exact same thing they are today, sending warmth into the Arctic. Here we have a global warming petition signed by 31,000 American scientists, including 9,000 plus PhDs that say stop the global warming fraud. Even the American Meteorological Society, only 52% of them agree that the CO2 is the primary driver in the climate. And I keep pointing these things out. NASA, why did you stop your temperature anomaly map at this point? You have a huge staff. You can't run it into the future? Well, let me do it for you. Dr. Roy Spencer, when we look at global temperatures, it's only 0.2 of a degree over baseline. Nothing even close to the 0.08 NASA leaves you with. That's why all these failed climate models are no longer believable. And the media totally deflected the month of January when everything was well below normal temperatures in the Northern Hemisphere. They won't talk about the gains overall on Greenland for ice. They don't want to talk about how it's forecast to go out for at least the next month below normal temperatures. They don't want to talk about how cyclic patterns and the geomagnetic fields of our planet, especially, are cyclical around September, October, and March. They don't want to talk about increasing galactic cosmic rays forming more clouds, pushing weather patterns, our magnetospheres weakening. The jet streams are wandering. They don't want to talk about stratospheric radiation increases. Well, this is a huge player in climate. Global warming hoax? Yeah. Try to explain to me how those 2 degrees Celsius jump at the year 1000 on the left side of the chart and then descended, then rose again. And where were we then with the CO2? That's a 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature 1,000 years ago. Follow the sunspot activity. We are going into a grand solar minimum. These are the same things again and again through historical accounts that we're repeating. These anomalous weather patterns. And to wrap it all up, Mark Morano's new book, Climate Change, a politically incorrect guide on how to explain the exact same stuff I'm explaining and then have a whole troll army of global warming people come and ad hominem. You know you're over the target when this happens. And while you're watching the video, which is going to be incredibly informative of the true state of our climate, remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030 and click that bell so you can get the latest updates. Let's jump back to February 27th. News headlines across the planet talking about the Arctic being 45 degrees. Well, that's what appears in the headlines, and then somewhere in there it's above normal as your eyes stop. They forgot the European super freeze, but the front page headlines of the global media following the same exact narrative. Heat wave in the Arctic. What the media neglects is reading these charts here. Very simple. That blue line at 273 Kelvin, that's the 0 Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit line. Anything below that means freezing. So during this entire event going on, that's the red line. So when the media is talking about heat waves in the Arctic, extreme heat, as an overall baseline average of the 80 degrees north latitude area from 90 at the exact North Pole, come down to the 80 degree north parallel and go all the way around. This encompasses an average of the entire area. You know, I have these global warming rah-rah cheerleaders come over to my site and continually say that all I do is cherry pick information. Well, I'm going to say you are hypocrites. You are cherry picking this information. You had one temperature station on Greenland register anomalous heat in one tiny area of the Arctic. That's weather, baby. That's not climate. That's weather. You want to say it's weather when I talk about it? It's weather when you talk about it. It was one single tiny little instance in one little tiny isolated pocket of the Arctic that is such a minuscule dot up there. You can't even claim a heat wave. Here's the true information from DMI. It reached nowhere near heat wave or record warm temperatures across the entire Arctic. Even today, look how that blocking pattern is lifted and everything's nice and chilly up there at minus 30 degrees Celsius at least. And also what I was pointing out is the media kept going on and on and on about all the heat in the Arctic. Well, the European super freeze is coming. Tens of thousands of cold and snow records were being broken across Eastern and Central Europe. Then it turned into 100,000 plus cold and snow records. Ice storms everywhere, sheep getting covered in snow, greenhouses collapsing, gas shortages, food shortages. And they're still talking about how hot the Arctic was. And I said, you know what? It's not hot. They're telling you myth truths. It might be in a single location and it was far. I was saying it was at 69 degrees latitude you had to come to find any of these kind of warm temperatures they were referencing. So I was standing up here in the Arctic Circle and it's below freezing and below freezing and below freezing for those days. And then I've overlaid these charts here. The top is Climate Reanalyzer, which runs the hottest on the web. From NASA, for example. So if you're looking to put a news article out and you want to manipulate the temperatures and make sure you get the hottest readings from any data set on the planet, go to Climate Reanalyzer. If you want to get something more in the medium range, you're going to want to come down to Nullschool here. So you can see the difference and just visually how this is. That top chart, Climate Reanalyzer, is showing even in the green and the light green, that should be 10 degrees Celsius. But when we look in the exact same location, the exact same day at 0900 Zulu for both maps, the temperature is minus 4.9 Celsius, below zero. So misleading, so misleading. And it's all about February 25th in the Arctic, where it did go 1 degree Celsius. And I'll admit, I made a mistake. It was not below zero the entire event for those 9 days in a row that the media was claiming it was record heat. I'm sorry, it did go to like 1 degree Celsius. But then it plunged right back down to minus 28 degrees. And at 2 p.m. on the 25th, 1 degree Celsius for a couple of hours. And on the 25th in the morning, 8 a.m., still minus 5 degrees Celsius. And as we get through the day, freezing. And then it goes over freezing for an hour or two. Back down, down, down. And the next days, it's minus 28 degrees Celsius again. Where'd the heat wave go? Now, just for reference here, I hope we're both speaking English, because heat wave for me does not mean well below zero. And something that popped up to 1 degree at freezing is still a heat wave. I don't know if we're speaking English, because anything that freezes and a liquid turns to a solid, in my opinion, is not heat. It's lack thereof. And when temperatures drop that quickly back down to almost minus 30 again within a few hours after that, well, your maps look good. It makes it look like it's super hot in that one little anomalous region there, but it's not the entire Arctic. That's cherry picking. That's just weather. That's not climate. A little bit wider out here so you can see more in depth of what I'm talking about with the temperature variances and how it looks just incredibly hot on these maps. So you can get information to do anything you want. You can even ignore it if you want to, because that's exactly what the media did all of January when these anomalous cold events were happening all over the Northern Hemisphere. Look how cold that is compared to baseline average. And I'm even using the climate reanalyzer that runs super hot on the web map. These are the warmest temperatures you can possibly find on the internet in terms of a data set. And look how cold that is. Wait, shh, don't say anything. If we don't say anything, maybe nobody will notice it and they'll just ignore it and it'll go away. Maybe not, but look how cold it is again today. Back to the regular temperatures. Now moving on to another contentious issue here. Bringing up the past is a no-no. Enhanced Atlantic inflows into northern regions also happened in the 1920s and 1930s. Oh, let me see. Would that be a cycle? Yes, it would. So these anomalous temperatures that you have been fed that are just first time ever. No, not really. We can look in the past and also find the same events. Now, everything I'm talking about today, I linked in the description box below, which the ad hominem video attack did not do any of this. It was just, here's a bunch of slides, and believe me, they didn't backlink anything. So, I had to go through and do some of my own research to really find the true information, what's going on. I highly encourage you to chase down all these articles, leads, information packs, and the plethora of information that says global warming is a hoax. Starting with the Global Warming Petition Project. You're not hearing much about that in the media, are you? 31,000 American scientists. Not scientists from around the world, just American scientists. 9,000 plus of them with PhDs have signed this petition to reject global warming agreements written in Kyoto, Japan, and that there's no convincing scientific evidence that human-related CO2 emissions are the primary driver of any disruption in Earth's climate. That's just American scientists. And Frederick Seitz, past president of the American Academy of Sciences, penned the letter to rethink the entry of the United States into the Kyoto Protocol. He's passed on, but somebody at this level, the past president of the National Academy of Sciences, saying that global warming is a hoax. Let's take a look at all the statistical models that were run by the IPCC and see how many of these correlated to today's temperatures and forecast correctly the future of our climate on Earth. One. Out of the 73, So you can start to see why people are asking questions about really what's driving the climate. And we need to get the conversation started, not just run up against a stone wall. The minute you say that CO2 is not the main driver of it, that there's other variables like the sun, our magnetosphere weakening, galactic cosmic rays, volcanism, and all these other turnkey integral parts that fit right into the grand solar minimum. But the minute you start talking about that, oh, you are a heretic. So what I found something really interesting when I was looking up this 31,000 scientists for the OSIM petition, I did a Google search first, and these are the results that came up on Google. Number 1, skeptical science. Number 2, skeptical science. Number 3, Snoop saying, nope, it's not real. And then I went over to DuckDuckGo, and sure enough, look at the different results that you get from DuckDuckGo compared to filtered Google. So even on the 4th listing, which I couldn't screen grab there, on Google, I love how it says only 9,000 scientists with PhDs had signed this petition. Only 9,000 plus. And it really is written in this way in Google to make you go, oh, it's not true, or whatever they're doing with their filtering. So you just see how this whole science debate is nothing more than smoke mirrors and filtered search engine results to put you into the pocket of what they want you to see. So I went to skeptical science. And they're like, 32,000 sounds like a lot, huh? And then they go into this whole, according to the figures, 10.6 million science graduates have gained qualifications. And they're saying the 32,000 out of the 10 million is not a very large number at all. And then they try to back it up right away with these fancy charts. Wait a second, 13,950 peer-reviewed climate articles, only 24 reject global warming. I'm not even one of the rejectors. And you know what? I'll state for the fact categorically, I believe our climate is changing so much, and that's the reason I'm doing this channel. I believe it is changing so fast, so much more than we can comprehend, and it will have such effects on our society that we are going to get reset and knocked back hundreds of years of development because of how fast our climate is changing. I just don't agree that it's 100% CO2 induced and that man is the driver of this. Not at all. That's what I dispute. And to be called a climate denier, I just shake my head and I go, oh, you know nothing. But what's funny is one hand climate science points out and says, oh, it could be any science graduate, yet NASA touts as one of their 18 scientific associations associated to agree with global warming. The American Medical Association? What? They're not climate scientists. So you see how this hypocrisy goes both ways on the debate here? And only 52% of the American Meteorological Society agrees with CO2 being the primary driver. Now let's go back to that original consensus where they said there were only 24 rejecting. So when we come to the American Meteorological Association, the way they broke it down and the way they had also been given choices on what the climate could be, mostly human, and then all the way where you see right in the center where global warming is not happening, there's only 4 of the respondents out of there that said it's not happening. And you can see the exact same thing that happened with the 1,390 peer-reviewed climate articles that they got this 97% consensus on. Only 24 rejected all that. Well, this is the exact same thing. You're only getting a very, very, very small amount of people that said there's nothing happening in regards of the climate changing. So I want to bring you fast forward here too. How did they arrive at the 97% consensus of global warming is real? What they did is they sent out those 13,000 plus peer-reviewed papers. Same thing, they had a survey. How much is happening? Do you believe it's happening? Is it explicit? Is it not explicit? Is it 100% no position? Some people rejected it. There was a lot of things going on with the respondents. The number of abstracts, anything that said no position, that was removed out. That didn't count. As soon as you remove those 7,970 papers, boom, it looks like it's 98%. Absolutely it does, because there's so few left. And the majority of those then are absolutely saying that there's some CO2 effect on our planet's ecosystem and weather patterns. So let's do the same experiment again here. If I took out the center two bars that said insufficient evidence or I don't know the cause, and I removed that amount of respondents out of there, and then suddenly, where do those numbers go? It sure wouldn't be 52%. It would skew right back up into that 90%, because once you remove out the center percentile, and looking back at the 24 articles here, I left a list for you so you can track those down yourself on the original 13,000 plus papers. The 24 that said CO2 is not responsible in any way, shape, or form. I left that list here for you, linked below. And also, for those of you who are on the fence and you really don't know what's going on with the climate debate, I encourage you, no tricks zone. I've also linked everything below here. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed studies now out since that supposed 97% consensus that are all absolutely unequivocally stating there are other drivers and forces at work to change our climate. It's not CO2. And I mean thousands, plural, in this. So over on the right side here, the skeptical papers, 2016 has several sets within there, 2017, and then it goes 14 back. Then on the left side, you have almost 1,000 papers from the 1970s talking about cooling being based on other factors as well. So let's just break down set one of the 2016 papers that had come out. It shows you exactly what the topics are about and how many papers are inside that subtopic, if you will. So solar influence on our climate. There's now 133 papers there saying that has an effect. It's not all CO2. And you go through and you find 200 plus papers just in this first set from 2016. And there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed documents coming forward now. And it really makes you wonder, the number of global warming peer reviews papers by year is dropping. Why is that? Why does the number stop at 2012? I bet you if this thing was out to 2017, that would be half of what it is on this chart. There's always conveniently left out stops and gaps, and they put that up on their website. And hey, I mean, you can't update a temperature chart from 4 years ago. Why do you stop it at that time? Anyway, what's up with that? This is a key resource as well. But here's interesting. Back in 2009, highlighted in blue, there were still at least 450 peer-reviewed papers skeptical of 100% CO2. Why did that not make the news? Why was nobody talking about that? I was fed. It was 100%, 97%. No opposition whatsoever. So you can start to see when this information is going in my brain and I'm talking to these same people writing these papers, I consider global warming a hoax. It is a hoax to get you to pay a global tax. And so far, paying global taxes in to mitigate weather changes hasn't worked. I want a refund with interest. By collecting taxes, this is not working. It's doing nothing. I want my money back, and I'm sure others do as well. Now, jumping on to where numbers stop to keep the agenda going forward. NASA, come on. You get billions in funding. You have a huge staff. Why do all your temperature graphs stop conveniently right at the high point of everything? Why you can't tell me that you didn't follow and go over to Dr. Roy Spencer's site and see that there was a decline in temperature down to 0.2 of a degree over baseline, that you chose to leave all these 4 temperature sets right up there at 0.8 of a degree at the anomaly? Really? Right at the peak of the El Nino, and your staff can't get it to bring it out another year? With all your multi-millions in funding to show us the true temperatures have dropped and it's not this never-ending runaway hockey stick. Anyway, to take a look at the real temperatures here for February 2018. You've been told we were going to warm into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees Celsius above normal. Well, actually it's been dropping and we're only 0.2 of 1 degree. Yeah, their projections are off at least at the very minimum by 5 times on the warming. So these are the things that should make you pause and start asking questions. What is going on? Why are we still being fed all of these narratives that it's just CO2 warming, all the jet streams. No, nothing about magnetosphere, nothing with the sun. No, it couldn't be. Can't be. But I do give credit to Climate Reanalyzer for putting the different bands of temperature down there. And what I'm talking about is go to the very bottom. They've broken the temperatures down by world. Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, Arctic region, Antarctic, and tropics. Now, what I could not find on Climate Reanalyzer was a full month of data to compare February to February. Like you can on Dr. Roy Spencer's site. I've highlighted in blue here. They show the global temperatures at 0.2, but Climate Reanalyzer still has it at 0.6. You just saw that previous slide there, 0.6. How is that? How can those temperatures be so far off when this is a data set from temperatures on satellites? The UAH global temperature data set from satellites. How can they be so different with Climate Reanalyzer? 0.2 to 0.6 of a degree, that's huge in the climate debate. But I was able to locate on the Climate Reanalyzer site the monthly reanalysis time series here for annual temperatures. Lo and behold, it stops at 2010. I'll let you make your own judgment as to why. And also another thing that provokes hot debate in terse words, shall we say, is bringing up Greenland. Left side is actually today's date, and they're looking at the total water equivalent called the mass balance. You can see there's some gains down in southeast there. Nothing's melting. And then on the right, what you get is that full 1981 to 2010 average over this exact same day from the 11th of March for that 20-year period. They've just said 11th of March, and then each year they do the 11th of March, and then this is what you get. We were told everything is melting early, yet that's showing gains, so I don't know where that information takes us. Down a rabbit hole, I guess. And this one's from the DMI as well. This is 1981 yearly, 1981 to 2010 average. That's straight in the middle, that black bar there. Now 2011 and 12, as you can see, the red were far below normal, but last year, 2016-17, were far above normal. Now that makes you go, whoa, 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 wait a second right there. We were told it was melting. Things were decreasing, yet we had all-time record gain. And then 2017-18 starting out very interesting as well, still above the baseline. This somehow just gets out of the media flow as well. It's not as exciting as talking about a single temperature station in the Arctic that was warm for a few hours during the winter. Which brings me back to the modern minimum. You know, we're talking about cycles. Global warming proponents don't want to talk about cycles because it's all just us from a certain time period started putting gases in the air and we're warming it. Well, why don't we go back in time and see if there's cycles? Modern minimum. Notice where the temperatures are warm back in the 1600s during the last grand solar minimum that had massive effects on our planet. Where is it cold? I'm going to widen this out here for you and we'll step into another map in just a moment. But that yellow is where it's warmer during these grand solar minimums. Blue is where it's colder. You see any matchups of today that's happening? Things you've seen in the weather? Let's take a different look here. We're going to go right, this is the North Pole view. So where that X crosses, that's exactly at 90 degrees on the North Pole up there. I want you to come just a little bit to the right of Greenland, a little bit north and to the east. Notice that big warm blob below Greenland as well. Look at Alaska. We always hear in the news that Alaska's warm. It's getting warmer. Okay, well that matches with what these cycles are. But I really want you to focus to the north up in Greenland. And let's look at what happened with this air intrusion, which also happened in the 1930s and 20s, by the way. But look where it matches up in that exact same spot. And they are talking about this being such an anomalous effect, and it's from us humans making this happen. You can find these matchups routinely in history. It's not you, It's not CO2, it's the sun. And whenever you debate somebody in the global warming agenda crowd, please bring up this GISP ice core data set. Now, irregardless of the Chinese dynasties that I've overlaid on here that have collapsed every grand solar minimum, every empire, kingdoms, kings and queens, whenever these events come, there's famine, population migration, and war. All that aside, I want you to go over far left the year 1000 AD. And you see that minus 32 there. The lower it goes down, the lower the temperature. The higher it goes up, the higher temperature. But I want you to focus on where it says Ort minimum. How did it go 2 degrees increase right after the 5 dynasties collapsed in China? Explain that 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature without CO2. And then we have that steep drop off again. But then the temperature rose right back up again. How did that happen? There were no SUVs, no factories. And you see this routinely in history. You can take this back 2, 3, 7, 10,000 years and you see the same step up, step down, step up, step down. It is a natural pattern. My whole channel is based around trying to get you the information to let you know this is here again. It's going to reset our society the same it has every prior grand solar minimum. Yet because I bring you this information, there are others out there who want to silence my speech, that believe I have no right to teach you or say these or bring this to your attention. That I should be shunned, I should be silenced, I should be jailed for my beliefs. Russell-McPherson effect. A cycle. March is the most geomagnetically active month of the year, followed by September and October. Equinox cracks. Even a gentle gust of solar wind can breach our planet's magnetic defenses. Researchers have long known during the weeks around the equinoxes, fissures form in Earth's magnetosphere. Now wait a second, this is a cycle, and you're telling me this has no effect on our weather at all? That the bombardment of charged particles coming in down our field-aligned currents have no effect on our weather whatsoever? Galactic cosmic rays and cosmic rays from the sun, both sources increasing, worsening than even the most, what was considered outlandish forecast. It's already blown past those. So then we're talking about 20% increases in cosmic rays, and then Svensmark, amongst others, even CERN had demonstrated that these rays cause more cloud cover, and that cloud cover causes less sunlight to reach the surface of our planet. Now these are going to eclipse even the wildest projections. And right here we have from March 2015 to January 2018, it's up 13% already. Then we look at Carlos Ramirez's wonderful work here. He's been breaking it down by year as well. Look at that upward trend, 2014, 50, 2015, 59, 16, 75, and now we are at 91, and then next we're going to be well over 100. And even these new papers that are coming out, just the radiative effects of cloud cycles daily, were never added into the climate models previously. So how could they tell you that they know everything about the climate, that it's settled science, when new information's always coming out? So what they consider was settled, you got to realize in science, the Earth was a fact. It was flat. Fact. Everything in the universe revolved around the Earth. Fact. Bacteria, what are those? There's no such thing as bacteria. And those atoms, Get them out of here. There's no such thing as atoms. Atoms do not exist. I don't know what that is. Gravity? Are you kidding? What gravity? Come on. Plasma. You're even going to tell me probably there's like some cosmic webby thing that never existed before, something like a quantum state or something. You're crazy. That doesn't exist. Science always moves forward. And for the global warming consensus to say the science is settled, it can't be. It's science. It's never settled. It's always questionable. 97% consensus. That's going to be looked back in history and go, are you kidding me? Sunspot forecasting years off in projection. NASA putting out what? It's dropping off 3 years early. Sorry, NASA. John Casey's the only one who predicted correctly where we're going with this. And we are going down and down into a grand solar minimum that is going to affect our food production globally. Pretty cold look across the northern hemisphere here for the next, month? That dark blue over there where the temperatures are well below normal, forget those. I hope they don't see blue. We don't have to talk about it. We could hide it under the rug, maybe. White out here for you so you can take a look at that. But you know the news, what they do, they'll do it best. They'll only focus on the Arctic and that one little specific spot right near Greenland that always warmed up during the grand solar minimum, especially the moderate minimum. And please bring them back to those charts over there. I've linked everything below in the description box so you can have a resource of an armory, if you will, of information to show the facts to other people who say, I never heard about that before. Well, almost everybody hasn't because we've been so controlled by the media. I hope you actually can talk to them and show them some graphs. Don't be dismissive when people come and say, I never heard about that before. Or just say, yeah, I understand. Well, the media has been in control of the narrative for so long, but that's broken now. It's breaking. Look at all this data set I have, all this new stuff I bet never saw. Why don't you come on over and we can talk about it for a few minutes. I have these amazing graphs and things you've never ever seen before. We can look how patterns are matching up. End of the month, hey, I thought it was supposed to be super warm and everything's way above normal average temperatures all the way from the Arctic Circle going further down, but I guess not. It's going to be cooling. What happened here? This goes out into April 25th. Still cool. And Mark Morano's new book, Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, highly suggest you give this one a read. I pulled a couple paragraphs already. And he covers points that I do also in this video, but in much, much greater detail. This is a political agenda. It's nothing about science any longer. It's all about politics. Especially when you get to these points here where arrest the climate change deniers. I thought we had a right to free speech. Crimes against humanity. My life growing up, crimes against humanity were for people who killed millions of others. Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong. That crowd that the socialists so identify with. Malfunctioned, never functioned once political ideology of the socialist left. That's crimes against humanity. And more scientists are starting to buck the consensus. There was such a witch hunt these last few years. I mean, if you even spoke out of line, you lost your job, you lost your tenure, you couldn't be hired in another institution, absolutely not. You were blacklisted. So as more scientists start to speak out, especially with this new petition coming forward, I really think we're going to start to see some answers and a lot more minds coming out, because I think truly, this is my own opinion, that the scientists, and others, astrophysicists, geologists, and the whole gamut covering this grand solar minimum, knowing these cycles are repeating, I think they're starting to wake up and they understand our lives are about to change. And even if they hold on to their jobs, it just won't matter in the future, because with the food, crop loss is coming, political and social upheaval that's about to befall our planet due to these cycles repeating, that they won't be able to hold the global warming narrative together. And what they're doing is they're signing on this to try to save their jobs and their careers. So in the future, when we look back, they'll say, no way, I absolutely was trying to stop this political agenda of global warming. See, I even signed this document. Now, I don't fault these people at all, because the positions they were put in during these last 15 to 20 years, I'm glad I wasn't in that position to be forced to lie to continue to feed a family. That would be terrible. Can you imagine that? And for those of you that have stayed around so far for the information, this is it. This is the forecast moving forward. So as the amplification and effects due to our sun decreasing in its electrical output, it's going to have effects on our planet. And as it does, our magnetosphere is going to weaken further. And when this does, our jet streams are going to go further out of place than they are now, allowing these what were considered rare warm air intrusions to do the same thing again that they do repeatedly through history. Now, the media will have you believe that it's because of CO2 and man's effects on the planet. But here's the blueprint of how much of it's going to intensify, so you even know that the intensification is coming based on Valentina Zarkova, Popov, and Shepard's work on the double dynamo of the sun. I've linked everything below. You can check everything out. I hope you back check these resources. All the slides have the correct names for the data sets on them, so if you want to backtrack, you can find one of the slides. Press pause and then just go to one of your favorite search engines and just type that exact thing in. Go to the Google image, that'll pop up, click the image, and it'll take you to the website. That's simple. The amplification is coming from 2018 and 19. I mean, these were already predicted last year that the amplification was going to come, and we were going to see extreme temperature events. We still need to get through the end of this year yet, and we are not even halfway there, and more amplification is coming. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the southern hemisphere this year. Look for massive crop losses across South Africa, Australia, and our own summer weather being torn apart with out of season everything. I would expect a blizzard to come and wipe out crops. Maybe not this summer, but for sure next summer as we enter into the 2019 going toward 2020. Everybody on the planet will wake up at this point and understand it's not CO2. This is that last-ditch effort by the global warming crowd to hold it together before everybody wakes up, because you are going to, and when you do, you are going to be two things. You're going to be scared because you won't know truly what's happening, and you're going to be angry and wanting to lash out because you've been fed misinformation your entire life. That's why I'm doing my channel. I try to bring you this information the most concisely, the best I can. Yeah, I made one little mistake about it going over freezing by 1 degree Celsius over a 9-day period. And that was the whole Hominem attack was about. And then when I start talking about the cycles and snow and repeating minor minimum patterns, whoa, this was a coordinated attack. So it's almost as if everybody's holding that last stand just they're trying to hold on. I tell you what, they're really trying. It's falling apart. Just like our magnetosphere, so is the global warming agenda. This is your playbook. This is how our Earth's climate system is going to unfold, and this is how our food growing systems are going to collapse right in front of your eyes here. The wider the spread means the more intense the weather. The wider the spread means more crop losses. You can see the timeline moving forward on how much time you have to get your family prepared, yourselves prepared, to make many changes in your life. First being, you better learn how to grow food. I don't care where you live. You need to learn how to grow food right now. And as I've been accused of, I cherry pick data. So let's cherry pick Erie, Pennsylvania, buried under 13 feet of snowfall, breaking all-time records. And they're set for another foot or more coming over the next week. If you're going to pick one single temperature station way up in the north of Greenland and make your whole entire newsfeed for a full week off of one temperature station going, hey, I can pick one too. This is mine. 13 feet of snowfall breaking all-time record, Erie, Pennsylvania. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. And I would ask, those of you who know who put that ad hominem video out, the whole point of doing the response video was trying to not drive traffic to their site and their minions, but to put the information out there